Well, firstly, could you introduce yourself and tell us the organization that you represent here in Cancun?
I'm Ned Helme, and I'm the president of the Center for Clean Air Policy, an environmental think tank based in Washington and Brussels.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we can assume there's not going to be any major breakthrough at the end of the Cancun talks. We never expected there to be. Where do we go? Where does the process go in the run-up to Durban next year and beyond?
I think the key really is this Fast Start Finance program that we've got. $30 billion, about 10 times what was available in the past 17 years of the treaty. I think the real test is what happens on the ground. And we're starting a new program with a whole set of developing countries in Latin America and also in Asia to develop what are called nationally appropriate mitigation actions, NAMAs, that can really break the mold here. If you think back to this treaty in the mid-90s, we had a period called the Activities Implemented Jointly when we developed the first set of project-based reductions. And that created a basis for language in the Kyoto Protocol that created the CDM and created the joint implementation kind of program. We're faced with a similar kind of situation. I think we've gone as far as we can go with top-down solutions like Kyoto. We really need learning by doing to build a base for that future, and I think the future lies in what key developing countries do on the ground and what they learn from each other, South-South learning.
Right. I mean, even though the expectations are fairly low, is it fair to say that great progress has been made in recent years? There are more and more organizations joining the process, there's more information being learned, there's a learning process going on. So, of course, it's going to be complex, and it seems to be ever more complex. But progress, is it fair to say, has been made?
Absolutely, and I think you really have to look at developing countries. That's where the real breakthroughs have occurred. China has well-documented, significant programs reducing very large amounts of emissions. We did a study that showed that Brazil, Mexico, and China combined produced as much or more reductions in aggregate tons than what the EU would do with its minus 30 target that now is minus 20. And similarly, more reductions than what the United States would do if we had passed our law. So the action on the ground in developing countries is the real message of these talks, and the fact that we had so many of them at Copenhagen inscribe significant targets. I mean, that is real change. We now have a situation where developing countries are leading rather than following. They're showing the way to move this issue forward.
So should developed nations be shamed by this action, by the progress being made by the developing countries?
I don't think they should be shamed, but they should be spurred onward, and we should end the rhetoric about, what we see in the United States. We shouldn't do anything because China's not doing anything. Well, that myth has been debunked. It's broken now, and it's time. We have, unfortunately, the United States. We're the laggards now, and it's time we stepped up.
Right. You mentioned the carbon market. Would you like to explain a little bit more about where the carbon markets?
Well, a lot of people are worried that if we don't get a second commitment period of Kyoto agreed to here at Cancun, and I don't think we will, that means the end of the carbon market. And I think that's a much too simplistic a notion. This carbon market is a many billion-dollar market now, and it's based on the European Union's emissions trading system, the EU ETS, and we have major development in Japan, a new program that will require 25% reduction below 1990 levels, very significant program, and Australia has now said they will start a cap-and-trade program on a significant level. So even if we don't see a second commitment period of the Kyoto Protocol, I think the carbon market will be alive and well. It'll probably go through some bumps right now because of the uncertainty, but you've got three big countries, big markets out there to purchase offsets and to purchase credits. Japan has said, we're going to step up, we're going to meet this target, and we're going to define for ourselves what are acceptable offsets. And they're out talking to countries about bilateral agreements. And I think that's the direction we're headed in the future. I think we're going to see a multiplicity of buyer countries working with developing countries and bringing this forward.
I mean, why does it look like Kyoto won't be extended beyond 2012? Was it a flawed process from the start?
No, I don't think so. I think Kyoto was needed. It was appropriate for its time. It set the targets. It got the major developed nations on the board. That's 13 years ago. The world has changed. I mean, look at where we were in the recent recession. Brazil, China, India drove the economics of this recent recession. It was the U.S. and Europe. We're debtor nations at this point, and the developing countries are the place where the economic activity is happening. We've seen a fundamental shift internationally in the world of finance, and I think that's going to be reflected in the carbon game as well.
Right. I mean, what do you think are the major issues when people look back at Cancun in a few weeks, few months' time? What do you think the major issues will be that they'll be discussing? I mean, finance strikes me as
finance, definitely, and I think my hope is we'll work out a compromise on this issue of the Kyoto Protocol and its continuation, and then the good work that's been done on deforestation, on finance, on technology, on adaptation will move forward. I mean, clearly the Mexican presidency tonight would like to see an agreement on this overarching Kyoto Protocol issue, compromise, so that these other pieces can move forward. And I'm hopeful, maybe it won't be tonight, but I think we will get an agreement, and these key pieces will move forward. And I think that financing is critical. As I said at the start, $30 billion in this 3-year phase, but we need a much bigger $100 billion game, and we need that fund to start by the beginning of 2012.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.